People often ask me, Ray, what's the secret to your success? How did you build Bridgewater into the world's largest hedge fund? How did you turn nothing into $160 billion in assets under management? And the truth is, there is no secret. There's no magic formula. What there's are principles. Clear, tested, proven principles that I've developed over more than 50 years of making mistakes, learning from them, and systematizing what I learned. So I went public with my prediction. I testified before Congress. I told everyone who would listen, we're going into a depression. Get out of the market. Protect yourself. And I was completely, catastrophically wrong. Instead of a depression, the economy entered one of the strongest bull markets in history. The stock market soared. And me? I lost everything. I had to let go of my employees. I was so broke, I had to borrow $4,000 from my dad just to pay my bills. I was humiliated. I was broke. I was 33 years old, and I thought my career was over. But that failure, as painful as it was, became the most important thing that ever happened to me. Because it forced me to fundamentally change how I think, how I make decisions, and how I approach life. That's when I started developing what I now call my principles. These aren't just investment principles. These are life principles. Principles for making better decisions. Principles for building meaningful relationships. Principles for turning pain into progress. Today, I want to share with you the 5 most important principles that changed my life. Not just my career, but my entire life. These principles took me from borrowing money from my dad to building one of the most successful companies in the world. And more importantly, they gave me meaningful work, meaningful relationships, and a sense of peace that comes from living in alignment with reality. These principles work. I know because I've tested them for 50 years. I've applied them to markets, to business, to relationships, to everything. And they've never let me down. So let's dive in. The first principle, and the foundation for everything else, is this: embrace reality and deal with it. Sounds simple, right? But this is the principle most people violate most often. And it's the principle that, when I finally accepted it, completely transformed my life. Here's what I mean. Most people don't see reality accurately. They see what they want to see. They see what's comfortable. They see what confirms their existing beliefs. And when reality contradicts their view, they deny it, they rationalize it, they blame others, they do anything except accept it. After my 1982 failure, I had a choice. I could tell myself stories. The economy is rigged. I was unlucky. If only this or that had been different. And part of me wanted to do exactly that because accepting the truth was painful. The truth was, I had been arrogant. I had been overconfident. I had convinced myself I knew what was going to happen when really I was just making an educated guess. And I had bet everything on that guess. But here's what I learned. Reality is what it is, not what you want it to be. And the faster you accept reality exactly as it is, the faster you can figure out how to deal with it effectively. Think about it this way. Imagine you're driving and you see a brick wall ahead. You have 2 choices. You can close your eyes and pretend the wall isn't there because acknowledging it is uncomfortable. Or you can open your eyes, see the wall clearly, and figure out how to avoid it. That sounds obvious when I put it that way. But in life, in business, in investing, people close their eyes all the time. They don't want to see the problems in their portfolio. They don't want to acknowledge the flaws in their strategy. They don't want to admit they're wrong. And that denial? That's what destroys them. At Bridgewater, we've built our entire culture around this principle. We call it radical transparency. We don't hide from reality. We don't sugarcoat things. We don't pretend problems don't exist. We surface them. We look at them clearly. And then we deal with them. Now, how do you apply this principle in your own life? First, be honest about where you are right now. If your portfolio is down, don't pretend it's not. If you're behind on your retirement savings, don't ignore it. If you're making emotional decisions, admit it. You can't fix a problem you won't acknowledge. Second, seek out disconfirming evidence. Don't just look for information that supports what you already believe. Actively look for evidence that you might be wrong. This is hard. It goes against human nature, but it's essential. Third, create systems that force you to face reality. At Bridgewater, we have systems that track our performance, our mistakes, our blind spots. We can't hide from them even if we want to. You need something similar. Maybe it's a monthly portfolio review. Maybe it's a trusted friend who tells you the truth. Whatever it is, build it. Embracing reality doesn't mean being pessimistic. It means being accurate. It means seeing the world as it actually is, not as you wish it were. And paradoxically, when you stop denying reality and start dealing with it, you become much more effective. You stop wasting energy on denial and start using that energy to solve problems. That's principle number one. Embrace reality and deal with it. Everything else builds on this foundation. All right, let's talk about principle number two. Pain plus reflection equals progress. This principle came directly from my 1982 failure. And it's the principle that turned the worst moment of my life into the best thing that ever happened to me. Here's what most people do when they experience pain. They avoid it. They run from it. They distract themselves. They blame others. They tell themselves stories about why it wasn't really their fault. But pain is information. Pain is your body, your mind, or reality itself telling you something here isn't working. You need to change. And if you pay attention to that pain, if you reflect on it deeply, you can extract incredibly valuable lessons. Lessons that prevent you from making the same mistake twice. Lessons that make you stronger, wiser, more effective. Let me tell you what I did after 1982. I was in pain. Deep pain. Ego pain. Financial pain. The pain of humiliation. And I could have just tried to forget about it and move on. But instead, I did something different. I reflected on it. I asked myself hard questions. What exactly went wrong? What did I believe that turned out to be false? What didn't I know that I should have known? What biases was I falling prey to? How can I make sure this never happens again? And through that reflection, I discovered something profound. I realized that I had been confusing my opinions with truth. I had become so confident in my view of the world that I stopped questioning it. I stopped looking for evidence that I might be wrong. That reflection led me to develop a whole new approach. I realized I needed, first, humility. No matter how much I study, no matter how much experience I have, I'm fallible. I can be wrong. And acknowledging that isn't weakness, it's strength. Second, systematic risk management. I couldn't just make big bets based on my convictions. I needed to diversify. I needed to prepare for scenarios I thought were unlikely but were still possible. Third, a culture of thoughtful disagreement. I needed people around me who would challenge my thinking, who would point out my blind spots, who would stress test my ideas. These insights transformed Bridgewater. They're the foundation of everything we do. Our risk parity approach, that came from reflecting on the pain of being wrong. Our idea meritocracy, that came from realizing I needed people to challenge me. Our principles-based culture, that came from systematizing what I learned from pain. Now, here's what's beautiful about this principle. Every painful experience is an opportunity. Every mistake, every failure, every setback contains a lesson. And if you're willing to reflect on that pain instead of just reacting to it, you can extract that lesson and become better. Think about your own life. What are the most painful experiences you've had? Maybe it's a bad investment. Maybe it's a failed relationship. Maybe it's a business that didn't work out. Most people just want to forget those experiences. But what if you did something different? What if you, first, acknowledge the pain? Don't suppress it. Feel it. Sit with it. Second, analyze it objectively. What actually happened? Not your emotional interpretation, but the facts. Write them down if you need to. Third, identify the root cause. What led to this outcome? What patterns do you notice? What beliefs or behaviors contributed to the problem? Fourth, extracted principles. What do you learn from this? What rule can you create for yourself to prevent this from happening again? Fifth, systematized it. Turn that lesson into a principle you live by. Make it part of your decision-making process. And here's what I want you to understand. The people who succeed aren't the people who never experience pain. Everyone experiences pain. The people who succeed are the people who use pain as fuel for growth. I'm grateful for my 1982 failure. I really am. Because without that pain, without that forced reflection, I never would have developed the principles that made Bridgewater what it is today. That pain was the best teacher I ever had. So don't run from pain. Embrace it. Reflect on it. Extract the lesson. And use it to progress. That's principle number 2. Pain plus reflection equals progress. Principle number 3 is one that most people think they have, but actually don't. Be radically open-minded. Now, when I say open-minded, I don't mean being wishy-washy or not having convictions. I mean something very specific. I mean being willing to consider the possibility that you might be wrong. Being willing to stress test your ideas. Being willing to change your mind when the evidence demands it. And the reason this is so important is because your biggest barrier to success isn't what you don't know. It's what you think you know that isn't true. Let me tell you about what we call the 2 barriers that prevent people from making good decisions. Barrier number 1, the ego barrier. This is your deep-seated need to be right, to protect your self-image, to avoid the discomfort of admitting you're wrong. The ego barrier makes you defensive when someone challenges your ideas. It makes you rationalize away evidence that contradicts your beliefs. Barrier number 2, the blind spot barrier. This is the simple fact that you can't see what you can't see. Everyone has blind spots, areas where your thinking is incomplete or flawed. But by definition, you don't know what your blind spots are because if you did, they wouldn't be blind spots. These 2 barriers are what prevent most people from seeing reality accurately. And they're what prevented me from seeing reality accurately in 1982. The ego barrier made me overconfident in my predictions. I had built a reputation as someone who understood markets, and admitting I might be wrong felt like admitting I was a fraud. The blind spot barrier meant I wasn't considering scenarios I hadn't thought through. I was so focused on the depression scenario that I wasn't seriously considering the possibility that the economy might boom. So after 1982, I made a decision. I was going to become radically open-minded. I was going to actively seek out people who disagreed with me. I was going to stress test my ideas before betting on them. I was going to treat my beliefs as hypotheses to be tested, not truths to be defended. And this changed everything. At Bridgewater, we built an entire culture around this principle. We call it an idea meritocracy. The best ideas win, regardless of who they come from. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or an intern. If you have a good idea, if you have a thoughtful disagreement, if you see something I'm missing, you have not just the right but the obligation to speak up. And we have systems to support this. We have something called believability-weighted decision-making. When we're making an important decision, we don't just take a vote. We weight people's input based on their track record and their expertise in that specific area. So if we're making an investment decision, the people who've consistently made good investment decisions in that asset class have more weight. If we're making a management decision, the people who've successfully managed teams have more weight. This isn't about hierarchy. This isn't about seniority. This is about finding the truth. And the truth doesn't care about your title. I'd rather have someone tell me I'm wrong in a meeting than have the market tell me I'm wrong with my portfolio. So how do you become radically open-minded in your own life? First, recognize your ego barrier. Notice when you feel defensive. When someone challenges your idea and you feel that urge to defend it, that's your ego. Just notice it, acknowledge it, and then set it aside. Second, seek out people who think differently. Don't surround yourself with yes men. Find smart people who see the world differently than you do, and listen to them. Really listen. Third, ask yourself, what would need to be true for me to be wrong? This is a powerful question. It forces you to identify your assumptions and consider alternative scenarios. Fourth, triangulate. Don't rely on a single source of information or a single perspective. Get multiple viewpoints. Look at the problem from different angles. Synthesize. Fifth, develop what I call thoughtful disagreement. This isn't just arguing. This is genuinely trying to understand the other person's reasoning. It's saying, help me understand why you see it that way. What am I missing? The goal isn't to prove you're right. The goal is to find out what's actually true. And sometimes that means discovering you were wrong. And that's okay. Being wrong and learning from it is how you get better. Principle number 4 fundamentally changed how I build teams, how I work with people, and how I understand myself. Understand that people are wired very differently. For most of my life, I made a mistake that I think most people make. I assumed that other people think the way I think, that they process information the way I process information, that what motivates me motivates them. And this assumption caused so many problems. I get frustrated when people didn't see what seemed obvious to me. I'd be confused when someone had a strong emotional reaction to something that seemed straightforward. I'd wonder why some people were so detail-oriented while others focused on big-picture thinking. And then I discovered psychometric testing, personality assessments, tools like Myers-Briggs, the workplace personality inventory, and others. And I realized something profound. People really are wired differently. Some people are introverts who need quiet time to think. Others are extroverts who think out loud. Some people are big-picture thinkers who focus on vision and strategy. Others are detail-oriented and focused on execution. Some people are comfortable with risk and ambiguity. Others need structure and certainty. None of these is better or worse. They're just different. Different ways of thinking, different ways of being, different strengths and weaknesses. And once I understood this, it changed everything. If I assumed everyone should think like me, I'd build a team full of people like me. And that team would be terrible. We'd have lots of ideas and no execution. Lots of vision and no follow-through. But because I understand that people are wired differently, I can build complementary teams. I can put together people whose strengths cover each other's weaknesses. And this isn't just about building teams. This is about understanding yourself. One of the most valuable things you can do is figure out how you're wired. What are your natural strengths? What are your natural weaknesses? What types of thinking come easily to you? What types of thinking are hard for you? Because once you know this, you can make better decisions about what to do yourself and what to get help with. For example, I know I'm good at seeing big patterns in markets. I'm good at strategic thinking, but I'm not good at the operational details of running a large organization. I'm not naturally good at managing people's day-to-day emotions and concerns. So what did I do? I found partners who are good at those things. I found a co-CEO who complements my weaknesses. I built systems that force me to pay attention to the things I naturally overlook. This is what I call knowing yourself and operating accordingly. Now, here's how you apply this principle practically. First, take some personality assessments. Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, Workplace Personality Inventory, whatever resonates with you. These aren't perfect, but they'll give you language to understand your natural patterns. Second, be honest about your weaknesses. Everyone has them. I have them. You have them. Acknowledging them isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because once you know your weaknesses, you can compensate for them. Third, build complementary partnerships. Don't just surround yourself with people like you. Find people who are strong where you're weak, who think differently than you do, who see things you miss. Understanding that people are wired differently isn't just about tolerance. It's about effectiveness. It's about building better teams. It's about making better decisions. It's about creating systems that work with human nature instead of against it. And personally, this principle has given me so much peace. I used to get frustrated with myself for my weaknesses. Why am I not better at details? Why don't I enjoy operational work? But now I understand. That's just not how I'm wired. And that's okay. I don't need to be good at everything. I just need to be excellent at what I'm naturally good at and surround myself with people who are excellent at what I'm not. That's principle number 4. Understand that people are wired very differently. And now we come to the 5th principle, and this is the one that ties everything together. This is the principle about what actually matters in life: meaningful work and meaningful relationships. I built Bridgewater into the largest hedge fund in the world. We manage $160 billion. I made a lot of money. I've achieved things most people dream about. But here's what I've learned. Money and success don't make you happy. What makes you happy is meaningful work and meaningful relationships. Meaningful work is work that you find engaging, work that challenges you, work that allows you to learn and grow, work that contributes something valuable to the world, work that uses your natural strengths. Meaningful relationships are relationships based on authentic connection, where you can be yourself, where there's mutual caring and mutual growth, where you can have honest, sometimes difficult, conversations because you both want what's best for each other. After my 1982 failure, when I was rebuilding Bridgewater, I had a choice. I could build a traditional Wall Street firm focused purely on making money, or I could build something different, a place where people do meaningful work in the context of meaningful relationships. I chose the latter, and it's the best decision I ever made. At Bridgewater, we've created a culture where, first, we're radically truthful with each other. Not because we enjoy conflict, but because we care about each other enough to tell the truth. We'd rather have a difficult conversation now than watch someone fail later. Second, we're working on challenging problems. We're trying to understand how economies work, how markets behave, how to build portfolios that perform well in any environment. This work is intellectually engaging. It matters. It makes a difference. Third, we're all learning and growing together. We're not just doing a job. We're becoming better thinkers, better decision makers, better people. And the result? The people who thrive at Bridgewater don't just make money. They develop deep skills. They build meaningful relationships with colleagues. They find purpose in their work. Now, I know Bridgewater's culture isn't for everyone. Radical transparency is intense. Some people try it and decide it's not for them. And that's okay. The point isn't that everyone should work at Bridgewater. The point is that everyone should seek meaningful work and meaningful relationships. So how do you apply this principle in your own life? First, be intentional about the work you do. Don't just chase money or status. Ask yourself, does this work engage me? Does it challenge me? Am I learning? Am I contributing something valuable? If the answer is no, think seriously about making a change. Life is too short to spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week doing work that doesn't matter to you. Second, prioritize relationships over transactions. In business, in investing, in life, focus on building real relationships. Get to know people. Care about them. Be genuinely interested in helping them succeed. The best opportunities in my life have come through relationships, not through cold networking or transactional exchanges, through real connections with people I respect and care about. Third, be yourself. Don't try to be someone you're not. Don't hide your weaknesses or pretend to be perfect. Authenticity is the foundation of meaningful relationships. People can sense when you're being fake, and it creates distance. Money is a means, not an end. I've known plenty of wealthy, miserable people, and I've known people with modest means who are deeply fulfilled. The difference? Meaningful work and meaningful relationships. At the end of your life, you're not going to look back and think, I wish I'd made more money, or I wish I'd achieved higher status. You're going to think about the work you did that mattered, the people you loved, the relationships that enriched your life, the contribution you made. That's what actually counts. So as you build your career, as you make your investment decisions, as you navigate your life, always come back to this question. Am I creating meaningful work and meaningful relationships? If the answer is yes, you're on the right path. If the answer is no, adjust. Because life is too precious to waste on work that doesn't matter and relationships that don't nourish you. That's principle number 5. Meaningful work and meaningful relationships. All right, let me bring this all together for you. These 5 principles changed my life. They took me from the lowest point of my career to building one of the most successful companies in the world. But more importantly, they gave me a life I find deeply meaningful. Let me recap them. Principle 1. Embrace reality and deal with it. Stop denying what's true. Face reality head-on. That's the only way to effectively navigate it. Principle 2. Pain plus reflection equals progress. Don't run from painful experiences. Reflect on them. Extract the lessons. Use them to grow. Principle 3. Be radically open-minded. Set your ego aside. Seek out people who disagree with you. Stress test your ideas. Find the truth, not just validation. Principle 4. Understand that people are wired very differently. Know yourself. Know others. Build complementary teams. Appreciate cognitive diversity. Principle 5. Meaningful work and meaningful relationships. Focus on what actually matters. Don't chase money for its own sake. Build a life of purpose and connection. These principles work. I know because I've tested them for 50 years. I've applied them to markets, to business, to personal decisions, to everything. And they've never failed me. Now, here's my challenge to you. Take one of these principles and apply it this week. Maybe you write down a painful experience and reflect on what you can learn from it. Maybe you seek out someone who thinks differently than you and have a thoughtful conversation. Maybe you take a personality assessment to understand yourself better. Maybe you evaluate whether your work is truly meaningful to you. Just pick one. Do it. See what happens. Because here's what I've learned. Principles only work if you live them. You can read about them, you can understand them intellectually, but until you actually apply them in your life, they're just words. So start today. Choose a principle, take action, and begin building the life you actually want. If you found this valuable, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. We're going to be diving deep into investment strategies, economic patterns, decision-making frameworks, all grounded in the principles that have worked for me over 50 years. And remember, the goal isn't to copy my life. The goal is to develop your own principles based on your own experiences and your own reflection. These 5 are mine. Yours might be different, and that's okay. What matters is that you have principles, that you test them, and that you live by them. Thank you for watching. Now go out there and embrace reality.